I'm Janet Clark, and you are listening to the Sales Matchmaker Podcast. Hello, thanks for tuning into the Sales Matchmaker Podcast. I am Janet Clark, your host, and I am the Sales Matchmaker. So this episode is going to be a continuation of the episode that we had last week. So last week we talked about why your business is stuck at six figures. So if you're a coach, a consultant, or some kind of an industry expert or agency owner, and you're finding yourself kind of hovering around that six-figure mark, maybe a little bit of a roller coaster. Some months you're doing 10, 12, 15,000, and other months you're swooping back down to 4, 5, and you're just struggling to maintain any kind of consistency. And you really feel like you're buried in work, and you really don't know what to do next. You just don't know how to get beyond that six figures on a consistent basis. So we talked about what would be the right next move for you. What would you have to do in order to be able to bring your business to the next level? And we all know that it's hard when we're in the midst of it, right? We're kind of buried. We know we're the bottleneck in our own business. And using that same analogy of the bottle, we talked before about how you really can't read the label when you're inside the bottle. So what I'm going to ask you to do today, and what we kind of did last week, is to step back a little bit to see, like, why are you buried? Okay. So the thing to do is, if you didn't listen to that episode, absolutely go back and listen to it. You can go to www.thesalesmatchmaker.com. And I think that episode was probably number 35. And you'll find it. And listen to that, because it's kind of a prelude to what we're doing. But if you're here now and you don't want to go listen to that right now, or you already listened to it, let's jump into what is the real cost of hiring a salesperson. And I will tell you right now that this is something that so many people are confused about, because people think that, they have this impression that they're just going to go out and they're going to find this commission-only salesperson, and this person's going to swoop in and make them, a whole bunch of money, and they're not going to have to pay anything until after that person actually closes a sale, which is cool, right? Because that is what they are going to be, commission-only, and that is how you're going to pay them. But here's the big but. There's the cost of acquisition. There's the cost of finding these people. There's the cost of training these people. There's the cost of lost revenue if you don't bring the right person into your business. As a matter of fact, the stakes are super high, because if you bring on the wrong person, you've just handed over your entire business, your reputation, everything you've built so far to somebody who could absolutely destroy your reputation in the marketplace and bury your business. And I'm not talking about burying it in work, right? You literally could lose your shirt. So we don't want that to happen. So let's talk about, how do you know what it would cost to bring on a salesperson? How do you actually figure that out? And then what's the best way to go about doing it? So we talked specifically last week about the benefit to having a salesperson, right? And I showed you a calculation of how this salesperson could bring you in anywhere between $500,000 and $2 million into your business. Okay, so we're going to be super conservative today, and we're going to look at the lower end of the spectrum. So let's say that your salesperson, you could bring on a salesperson, and that person, I'm going to use nice round numbers because it will make it easy to hear it, and you won't need to feel like you have to be near a calculator or writing all of this down. So I do want to preface this by saying that I'm going to be very simple in the way that I lay out these calculations for you today, but we do have a tool, and you can access that tool just by reaching out to me, and I'll make sure that you get connected with it so you can actually do some of this number crunching by yourself, right, for your own business. But for today, we're just going to use kind of a broad scenario. And reaching out to me if you want to do that. I have a new email address that I'm using now, which is janet@salesmap.me. So it's really simple to remember, janet@salesmap.me, M-E. And if you happen to send something to janet@thefreedomshift.com or whatever else you have for me, I'll get it. And of course, I'm always on LinkedIn and Facebook too. Okay, so we're going to go back to this. So we're going to say that your salesperson is going to be able to bring you in $480,000. So we're kind of in that $500,000 range, okay, over the next 12 months. So what would that look like? Well, we're going to assume that you have a $10,000 program. Now, I mentioned last week, if you don't have a $10,000 program yet, or maybe you're already way beyond that, which is even great. You know, I mean, some of our clients have $35,000, $45,000, $50,000 programs. We love them. We love $100,000 programs. But let's just say that you're somebody who is around $10,000 a month for your program. And if you're not quite there yet, maybe you've been selling yours for $500 or $7,500. We'll show you how. I mean, I can always show you how to beef that up so that it is a $10,000 program. Okay, so $480,000 over 12 months. You have a $10,000 program. And what we want to do now is we want to figure out, well, how many deals does that relate to? Okay, so we're going to take the 480,000, we're going to divide it by 12 months. So we know that you need 4 deals every single month, which will bring you to $40,000 a month. So now you've got your 480,000. Okay, so that doesn't sound so much, right? It's almost like a deal a week. So 4 deals a month in order to bring you to that next level. And that really is your next level that you're striving for. Once you hit the 6 figures, you really want to get up there to the mid 6 figures. And, you know, once you can scale there, then you can just duplicate what you did there and you can scale further. And there's so many other great things you can do that I don't want to go into right now. Just what we're going to talk to right now is, what is the benefit of bringing on the salesperson? How much is it going to cost you to bring on a salesperson? And get real about how you're actually going to be able to scale your business and free up your time. Because really, I understand that when you're at that 100K level, you're overworked. I mean, that's just basically the way that it is for, 90% of sales, or not sales, but coaches, consultants, agency owners, whatever. Okay, so we've got to the point that what we want to look at now is sort of the way that your salesperson is going to be able to sell these deals, right? So in the worst case scenario, let's assume that you don't have a list and you don't have a Facebook group and that you've been doing this all yourself. So you've been generating your clients. And right now, if we kind of look at what you've been doing, right? If we look at your current situation, so we're going to assume that you're, as what we said, you're at 100,000 a year, and that you're doing most of this organically and through referrals. And you probably don't even have a CRM set up at this point. Maybe you do, to do any kind of follow-up, but whatever you're doing right now, you're spending a chunk of your time doing it, and you're generating, if you're at 100,000 and your program is 10,000, you're generating about 1 deal a month. That's your average. And it's actually a little under that, right? Because you're probably averaging more like 8,000 a month. So maybe you're doing 1 deal every 10, a month for 10 months. But let's just say that you are going to look at what you're doing now, and you recognize that you're bringing in 1 deal a month right now. So what you want to do is you want to look at, let me just make sure I'm going to look at my notes for a minute here. You're at 100,000 a year. Each client is worth 10,000. You're enrolling just under 1 client a month. So, okay, how many hours do you spend on sales activities personally every single month to enroll that 1 client? So again, I'm going to be kind of conservative here, and let's just say that you spend 10 hours a week on the sales portion of your business. Now, I bet you some of you spend more than that, but let's just again, we're going to be conservative and say that you're spending about 40 hours a month to enroll one client every single month. Okay, so what would that look like if you decided you wanted to scale now and you wanted to do five times that because you want to do 500,000, right? Well, it's going to take you an additional, well, if it takes you 40 hours a month now, if you wanted to get even 3 times more clients, it's going to take you 120 hours a month. You don't have 120 hours more a month to add to what you're already doing. So you know that you absolutely cannot do this on your own. But let's assume now that you could bring on a salesperson who literally would spend 120 hours a month to bring in those 4 clients for you. Would you be happy with that? Like, of course you would, right? So what would it be worth in an investment to get to that point where you were actually bringing in an additional $480,000 a year because your salesperson was now closing 4 deals a month for you? And they were spending the time to do that because that's all they have to do. They don't have to fulfill, right? So, okay, let's go back to a little bit more about the time because I want to make sure that we get this. So let's assume that you decide that you're going to do this on your own. Okay. And I mean, you're going to bring on one salesperson by yourself. So studies have shown, and I know this for a fact to be true. Actually, I think this is a little bit under the truth, but it takes an average of 50 hours to search for, interview, and actually find that salesperson. Now, in today's noisy space out there on LinkedIn and Facebook, you're going to find thousands and thousands of people who are touting themselves as high ticket closers. And the truth of the matter is, or they're going to tell you they have teams of high ticket closers, right? So you're going to have to weed through all of these people to try to figure out, like, are any of them valid? And, you know, there are some that are, but it's a big job to find them, right? And I know that because that's what we do. So we spend a lot of time out there recruiting. So think about this, 50 hours. Now let's try to figure out what your time is worth. So we already said that you're working about 40 hours a week. And so that's about 160 hours a month that you're working. And you're generating about $8,000 a month, which makes your time worth about $200 an hour. So let that sit with you a little bit. So for, you know, those of you who are working a lot more, then your time is worth a little bit more, less, because you're, you know, we're talking about this $100,000 level that you're at. So simply take the amount of sales that you make, 100,000, and divide that by the number of hours that you work every single month times 12. Okay. So I'm gonna just go through that calculation again. Sometimes I feel like I'm confusing. I don't think it probably was that confusing to you, but I feel like I confuse myself sometimes. Okay, so studies show that it takes 50 hours to search for, interview, and bring on a salesperson. In today's space, we know there's thousands of people out there that are touting themselves as professional high-ticket closers. So what is your time worth? Well, how you're going to spend 50 hours, but right now you are earning about $200 an hour. So you're making $100,000 a year. You're spending about $160,000, 160 hours a month. And so if you divide that by the 8,000 a month that you would be bringing in to get to the 100,000, then your time is worth about $200. So if you calculate the 50 hours that you're going to take now and divert over to finding a salesperson, in actuality, it's going to cost you $10,000 of your time in order to do that. Now, that's not all of it either, because that's just to find the salesperson. Now let's talk about what happens once you find that person. You have to onboard that person, right? And you have to bring that person up to speed, and you're going to have to spend a certain amount of time training them and listening to their calls and making sure they understand your value proposition and all, the values and ways that you want your clients to perceive you, and also what your deliverable is. So it's going to take you another 50 hours. And this is on average, just to get your person up to speed. Now, again, I think that is lowballing it. I think it's actually going to take you about 6 months of time to get this person up and running and really doing a good job. And it's going to take a lot more than 50 hours of your time. But we're going to go with this is kind of statistics from sales managers. So a typical sales manager would spend about 50 hours of their time with a new hire. So now you've just spent another $10,000 of your time, because your time is worth $200 an hour. So you've just to bring that person on board and train them, you've now invested $20,000. And that's not the end of it. Because here's a sad fact. 20% of salespeople make it, which means 80% fail to make it. So you've spent all this time, you've invested all your time, $20,000 of your time to bring the salesperson on, and only 1 in 5 of them is actually going to be a good, solid hire. So now you can take that $20,000 that you've invested and you can multiply that times 4 or 5 times. So now you're talking about having to invest $80,000 to $100,000 of your time. But here's the thing, you don't have that time, because if you divert the time you're spending now, your $200 an hour time, into this project, you're not going to be doing the other thing. And by not doing the other thing, it's going to cost you lost revenue. So you are going to be like you'll lose your business is literally what will happen. So you absolutely cannot afford to do that. So look, how would you feel if you knew that you had to devote 400 to 500 hours just to get a salesperson on board? Like, it's just not rational to think that you're going to be able to do that. It's not a DIY project. So that even leads into another bigger thing, right? Which is the money that you're leaving on the table because you don't have somebody who's selling for you. So not only are you not selling, but your salesperson that you're trying to bring on board through all of this trial and error thing that you're going to be doing isn't making any money for you. So it's just not a viable option for you to think that you're going to be able to do this on your own. Okay, so it is super tempting to look at these commission-only closers and think that they're the solution for you. But truly, it's like leaving your baby with a stranger, like just any stranger on the street that says to you, hey, I'm a babysitter, and just saying, okay, fine, you want to take care of my kid? Like, you would never do that. And so you can't do it with your business either. So look, where are you going to get a closer who is going to be able to actually generate leads for you? Because here's the other side of the thing. Maybe you bring somebody in and you find someone and they fall out of the heavens and they happen to be a great closer, right? There are a few of us out there that are pretty good at it. Okay, so they come along. Well, what's the first thing they're going to want? They're going to want leads, right? Because if you get somebody that's already a high level salesperson, they're going to expect you to provide them with leads. And that means you're going to end up paying for those leads. So you have to know that this person needs to know everything about your business, has to come really up to speed on who you are, what makes you tick, what makes your clients tick, how your program works. And you have to be super confident before you turn over these leads that you spent good money on to somebody who may or may not actually be good. And you don't know that until you actually try it, right? So what typically happens, and I've seen it before, where somebody comes in and the coach consultant will put leads on their calendar, and one of two things happens for the most part. Number one is they do enroll some people, but they enroll them in using their scripts and high pressure tactics and manipulation, and they lie to the people and promise them things that aren't actually, you can't deliver. And so you end up with a bunch of crappy clients and you end up with refunds. And so obviously you also end up spending time trying to fix a situation and coach a person who's not really a good fit for your program. So that's one scenario. The other scenario is they just burn through your leads and they don't close anybody. And now you've spent all this money on ads and generating leads, and you've got somebody who can't close them, which is really what happens most of the time. Because most of these people really, truly have never done sales before. They've never done online sales before. They don't understand how to do it. They don't understand what it means to be able to get to nurture and qualify somebody. And across the board, in general, for anybody who's generating Facebook leads that go to a webinar and then go to a call, those leads close at less than 10%. So even if you get somebody really good, you may get a 20% close ratio, but that's going to be only because that person is so good that they do the follow-up, they know how to nurture, and they know how to get these people to enroll in your program. I'm telling you right now, if it was that easy, everybody would have a salesperson, and it just isn't, unfortunately. So I think you're getting the idea that no matter what, there's expense involved. You're either going to be paying for leads, and unless you've really got your leads dialed in and all of that, that's experimental, and that's going to cost you a lot of money. And God help you if you get the wrong person doing those calls, and they actually could do more damage to your business. If you go try to do this yourself, you could be spending anywhere from, $80,000 to $100,000 just out of your own pocket in your time spent. So, okay, what are the other advantages or alternatives to being able to bring in a salesperson? Like, how can you do it if you're not going to do the DIY model, which I hope to God, after listening to me, you're not going to do. So how about a headhunter? Maybe you could go find someone who could help you to get somebody on board. Well, a headhunter is going to want somewhere in the vicinity of about $50,000 over the course of time. Maybe it's not, maybe they're going to take it as the salesperson makes money. Or maybe you're going to go hire a company who already has a ready-made sales team, and you're going to let them do it for you, and they're going to charge you an upfront payment, which will probably be around $20,000. And then they're probably going to want anywhere from 25 to 40% of your revenue ongoing for them to manage your sales team. So that is a super expensive value proposition as well. So you have to be really, really careful about doing your due diligence before you decide how you're going to bring a salesperson on. Now, I know in a way I'm sounding like the Debbie Downer here, and I don't want to do that, because this whole thing about hiring a commission-only closer, it just like bugs the crap out of me. Because, I've built my entire livelihood on being a professional salesperson. And I am telling you, nobody is going to get a professional salesperson without investing in that person one way or another. It's just not going to happen. Just like whatever you're offering to people, they can't get it without your expertise. So people thinking that they can just go out and get a salesperson and that salesperson is going to be their savior and their salvation, it is not. It's probably going to be the biggest nightmare if you don't do it right. So you have to make an investment, and you have to be able to find the right person. And what I've found is that there are very few out there who can help you with this. So look, I said this last week and I'm going to reiterate this. When I started my business, I had no intention of matching salespeople with coaches and consultants because, in my past career, I hired tons of salespeople and trained them and, kind of been there, done that. But what was happening and what I was realizing is there was this gaping hole in the marketplace and there was a huge need. And I kept running up against it. And so, you know how it is when you keep hitting a certain thing and you're like, get that kind of voice inside your head, like, you could fix this, you could fix this. It almost becomes a calling, right? So now I ended up kind of going in that direction. And it hasn't been easy. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But there's very few people who will help you in this arena. And the ones that maybe could help you are maybe they're not really geared to help the people who are at 100K, who don't have ad spend dialed in, who don't have teams working on their Facebook ads or marketing strategy or whatever. So most of the people who are in this space who will really help you with your sales, their qualification is you already have to be at 50K a month, right? You already have to have 10 calls a week to be able to put on somebody's calendar, at least. And most of you I know, if you're in the 100K range, well, obviously you're not at 50K a month and you don't have the leads to do it. And it's just hard to find somebody that will really work with you at this level. So that's why Sales Map was actually developed and why we do what we do and how we do it, which I'm going to go into that a little bit more in a minute. So the other thing that I can tell you is that I don't know anybody who will help you with your salesperson who will also guarantee you ROI. So what I'm going to say is this: everybody is going to expect you to invest in working with them, and whether it's upfront or whether it's a big chunk of your revenue that you generate. And most of them are not going to give you any kind of a guarantee. So you're still faced with spending the time, even if you do go with somebody who, is going to find you somebody. They're going to expect you to do the training, the onboarding, and all of that. So somebody that's going, even if they're a placement agency and they're going to take a percent of the revenue that comes in, they're not going to do the training and get the person up on board and all of that. You're going to still have to do that. So you're still going to spend a lot of your time. So you can, plan on spending somewhere around 6 months to get somebody really up and running. So again, think of spending, 40, 50, $100,000 to get a good salesperson on board, no matter who you're working with for the most part. Okay, so it's not easy. Like what I do now, and when I made this decision that I wanted to do the sales matchmaking, I don't even know if I wanted to do it, but I was called to do it. Let's put it that way. I recognized that it's hard, and it's been a struggle for me to find really good quality sales pros. It's like right now we recruit about 50 sales people every single month, and we put them through our boot camp process. And the sad fact is that only about 10% of those people survive the 3-week boot camp. And the reason is because we are holding them to a very high standard. So what we expect from a salesperson is we expect them to do prospecting. We expect them to build relationships on your behalf. We expect them to be able to enroll high-level, high-quality, highly qualified clients into whatever program we're having them sell. So we teach them our Conversations at Scale prospecting process, which is usually geared toward LinkedIn. Sometimes it's Facebook. Sometimes it's nurturing an already existing database. But one way or another, we're teaching them how to do outbound marketing, which is outreach, high touch, personalized prospecting. And we are also teaching them how to enroll people using the HeartFlow sales framework. So in order for somebody to get certified through our process, they have to be a strong work ethic person, right? They have to have a strong desire and ethic. They have to be highly motivated, and they have to be a top producer, or they're not going to make it. So we are always constantly working at how to get people more successful and how to train them better and get more motivated people into our boot camps so that they don't fall off. But it's our struggle. So because it's this hard for us, which it's our business to do this, it's almost impossible for you to do it as somebody who doesn't even have the background. Now, when I started out, I was doing it on my own with the High Ticket Sales Alliance. And that has evolved even to, I now have 3 high-level business partners who are experts at this, who have been doing sales and marketing for many years as entrepreneurs. And we've put our heads together to solve this problem. And we're doing it synergistically, and we're bringing all our strengths and talents and gifts to this because it's a huge problem. And we want to figure out how to solve it. And so we don't do it because it's easy. We do it because we're passionate about solving this problem and helping entrepreneurs like you who have a big mission. And, and I realize that every time I help a coach or a consultant who transforms lives to become more successful and transform more lives, then I'm actually living my highest purpose and fulfilling my highest purpose. So this has become more like a labor of love for me than anything else. And I'm super committed to making this work. And the thing is that it's not necessarily all about the money. It's really about making it work. But of course, I can't do it for nothing, right? There's expense involved in having to go out and do this recruiting, train these people, get these people on board, and of course, be able to sustain the livelihood for myself and my 3 other business partners, right? So we come to the table. We are a very unique group, and we've got various skill sets within our group. So we've got the whole sales thing. We've got the recruiting thing. We've got the conversations and how to do the outreach. We've got how to set up the CRM and maintain and nurture and cultivate leads and do follow-ups. We've got people who are like experts in creating offers and making sure that the offer is irresistible, how to narrow your avatar. I mean, how to put your systems in place so that you can maintain your salesperson, because we don't want to have this kind of turnover that is very typical in this industry because it's so competitive. So what we've done is we've just pooled our strengths and our talents in a way that we're like guaranteed that we are going to solve this problem. And what we've done to make it great for our clients is we guarantee ROI. Now, that is probably the biggest differentiator for anybody. So if you come to work with us, we are going to get you a salesperson. We are going to get you a salesperson who can sell your program. We are going to work with you until it works so that you have a person who you really, really feel comfortable with, right? That you love this person. This person represents your business in the marketplace the way you want it to. And we show you how to put the systems in place so that this will work. And it's not easy. So that's pretty much my story. I want to talk more about this on future episodes. If it is something that you want to talk about, I'd love to hear feedback from you. If you have a different experience, if you found a way to get a salesperson and not pay any money, like I know it's not possible, but if you have that, reach out and tell me about it, right? I'd love to interview people about what they've gone through in this process of trying to bring a salesperson on, because I know that some of you have already tried to do it. right? Some of you have tried and failed miserably. Some of you have spent a lot of money trying to get a salesperson on board. Some of you have lost some credibility in your business and some traction because of your focus on a salesperson. And some of you have just been sitting out there going, I don't know how to do it, right? So wherever you are, I want you to remember that your next best move, if you truly, truly do want to get out from under the pressure of having all these hours and doing everything on your own, and you want to move and scale your business and get your business up to the high 6 figures and moving towards 7, you do have to bring on a salesperson. And the best way to do that is to talk to me, because we figured out how to help people to minimize the investment and maximize the ROI. And that's obviously the best case scenario that you can look at. So that's it for today. I hope that this was insightful for you. And as I mentioned, we do have some calculating tools that are kind of fun to play around with if you want to start looking at some of these costs in your business. You know, what are you actually making per hour? What is it costing you not to have a salesperson? What would it cost you to have a salesperson? How much money are you leaving on the table by not having a salesperson? So we have all these calculators built. And all you have to do is reach out to me at janet@salesmap.me, and I will make sure that you get connected with those tools. And in the meantime, have a wonderful week. Happy selling, and bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Sales Matchmaker Podcast. To hear more episodes, visit us at www.thesalesmatchmaker.com.